Oh, let's get that going. We are live. Happy Sunday, everybody. We are gathered here today on the most savage of Sundays to celebrate and honor horror, darkness, and the unknown. Carpenter, hear our prayer. Today we are talking about the illustrious legacy of the Scream franchise, just talking about Scream in general. We're going to have a short discussion, brief discussion. We'll see how long that goes. About the franchise as a whole, kind of go through the films that make it up right now, talk some expectations on Scream 7, and maybe where the future of the franchise ought to go after that. We'll see what happens. I know right now we got Zodiac in the chat right here. I said at the before I came on, told everyone to drop their rankings down there, and my man Zodiac came through clutch with a ranking. Let's get that up here. I'm guessing this is going from favorite to least favorite. 1, 3, 2, 4, 5, and 6. That's a pretty solid ranking, pretty consistent too. A whisper to a scream. I'm not going to try and sing it because I don't want to butcher that too much. I don't want to. I can't sing high notes. Red Right Hand, maybe I could do that, but I don't even want to butcher that. That intro tune, yes. NIB, I figured that was probably the most suitable entry tune for any of these Sunday shows that I do. It just seemed to be one of the most appropriate. It was originally going to be Sunday Bloody Sunday by U2, but I felt that was a little bit too on the poppy side of things. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but yeah, Black Sabbath NIB, that was definitely the way to go with the intro tune. But we're going to start things off here, taking a look at the appeal of Scream. What is it about this franchise that draws us in, or what drew me in specifically? You guys in the comments definitely tell me what it is about Scream that pulled you in, got your attention. My roots with this one is interesting because it wasn't Scream that drew me into it, if that makes sense. It will in a second. Season 4 of Mad TV, they had a Halloween special episode where you had all these pop stars of the late 90s getting butchered, from Puff Daddy and Natalie Merchant, they get slaughtered. Marilyn Manson gets slaughtered. And we come to find out that it is all at the hands of a guy in a ghost face mask. This little guy right here. And, we find out that he even takes out Kenny Rogers. Kind of spoiling the hell out of this fun episode. But it was a Halloween special episode. A nice narrative through line on a sketch comedy. And when we're revealed to this killer, it is a super popular pop star who was wanting to basically get back to number one. He even threatens Robert Englund, but Robert Englund was, our 7 Nightmare on Elm Street films, for crying out loud. Ain't no way he was going to go out like a bitch. But the guy was wearing a ghost face mask. And I thought that was an absolutely terrifying image. I was like 3 years old when I saw that on TV. It was Mad TV that introduced me to this little motherfucker right here. And as far as the appeal of the mask goes, I don't know, there's just something so simply eerie about it. Scary. It kind of warped nature of the face, the expression there, just where it's sort of got that elongated mouth there. The eyes are a little out of proportion. It looks like the little fucker's screaming. And I think that was a very, very interesting way to sort of approach that visually. I don't know. There's just something about the mask, man. It's off. It's not quite like the Myers mask, but it has that very same type of simplicity to it. And you can't go wrong with that. Sometimes simplicity is the best way to go. And once you get around to watching the films, you find out that, hey, these are pretty fun. And let's see what Zodiac says here, because this is going to be an interesting one, I think. Here, Scream was one of the first horror movies I watched with my mom when I was about 6. It's always going to have a special place. Yeah, it's definitely one of those ones, man, where I feel like no matter at what age you see it, really, I think it really depends on the time that you were alive. Really, and I don't know, it's kind of a tough one there, because you get some people who were sort of the target age audience for it who look back on it and absolutely hate it. Some of them look back and absolutely adore it. I also, like you, was at a very young age when I did actually get around to seeing Scream, and it was on a VHS tape, one of those ones where you have the 3 movies on it, very similar to the Halloween 6, Psycho 3, and the Mouth of Madness deal, where you had on this tape, it was Babe, Beverly Hills Ninja, and Scream. So you go from a kid's movie, take a freaking sort of a crude comedy. Absolutely love Beverly Hills Ninja, but that's neither here nor there. But Scream ended that tape. And that was a movie that I had sort of heard other kids talking about at school. I didn't really know what the hell it was. But as soon as the movie starts, I'm like, okay, this is interesting. They're already talking about Michael Myers. I love Halloween. And then that mask shows up. And then I realized, oh, we're watching this guy here. So, yeah, I don't know. I had to have been like 5 or 6. It's hard to say for sure, but I was definitely young, maybe 7. In anyway, when I did get around to seeing it, I'm like, holy shit, this is that mask from that Mad TV episode. And that first Scream film, first of all, the sort of meta nature of it, bringing sort of a self-awareness about the horror genre, horror tropes, I thought that was a pretty cool thing. Like, at a young age, I didn't understand the brilliance of it and sort of the cheekiness of it. So that's one thing that sort of helps me take Scream seriously, is having seen it as such a young kid, where the joke of it all kind of went over my head. Like, I saw it as being a super fucking serious film. So I think that allowed for me to be able to sort of look at this series through sort of a serious lens, even when we get to something as silly, say, as Scream 3. But something about the mask, the sort of self-referential approach that the series takes, I think, is also pretty appealing there. And one thing the franchise did for me, and maybe it did this for some of you guys out there too, watching some of these Scream films, and they're name checking all these various films throughout horror history and just film in general. They're name checking these other films that came before it, and that sort of gave this sense of awareness to these other films, and it was like, hey, I want to go and check this out. A great example would be in Scream 2, when they're talking about all these sequels, and you've got Randy talking, like he's naming off these campus slashers when he's on his infamous phone call scene. That was just I don't know, that definitely helped me sort of reach out to a few other slashers of yesteryear. I thought that was I don't know, there's just something fun about that, and having sort of something about following the protagonist throughout the series, I think, is very interesting too, because we didn't really get that so much with a lot of other films. Like, you have sort of recurring protagonists, like you do have your Dr. Loomises and your Laurie Strodes, but there wasn't a whole lot of development with them, really. With Sydney, Gale, and Dewey, you do get this heavy development over the course of the series as the films run along. And I don't know, man, that's something that I think helps it stand out among others. I mean, there's probably a few other examples that'll come to my head after I get off here. Let's see. The scene with Sydney and Billy and Stu's mom. Yeah. Yeah, when they're in Stu's parents' room. Yeah, that's a really good scene right there. Just the dialogue and sort of the way it helps to the way it moves them along character wise, I think is really cool. And yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't say it's a weird one there, but it's definitely a good scene, man. It has what the French call a certain I don't know what, but it's definitely I don't know, just something pivotal about it, and the way it's sort of intercut with the group of kids watching Halloween downstairs. And can we just take a second to mourn Halloween in Scream? Whatever that cut of that film is, whatever the fuck cut of Halloween they're watching, I'm sort of curious to see it because that thing is all out of whack. We all know we've all seen Halloween 1,012 times. We've all probably seen Halloween and Scream about the same amount of times to know that whatever cut of Halloween they're watching, it just ain't the right one, and that invokes my curiosity. First of all, that overly red blood and Michael seemingly trying to stab Bob like 3 times. Like he stabs Bob a couple times in the cut they're watching. But yeah, no, the other thing too. Yeah, no, I definitely had to have been at least 7 because I remember watching Scream and being excited for seeing Matthew Lillard because I did recognize him as Shaggy from Scooby Doo. And when we get that reveal at the end that, there's not one but 2 killers, that absolutely blew my mind. And as a young kid, that was like almost too much. That was like freaking cerebral overload there. I don't know, dude. There's something about Shaggy having been the killer that really fucked with me at that young age because I had to have been at least 7 because I think that came out in '02. So yeah, I was like 7 or 8 maybe when I saw Scream. And needless to say, at that point, the trilogy had already run its course. We were still years removed from Scream 4 and, of course, the 5, 6, and upcoming 7. But I don't know, man, that whole film, there was something about it that seeing it at such a young age, it sort of, I don't know if that one, I would almost go as far as to say that Scream did help me become a more serious horror fan where, the Halloween movies that I was already watching at that point, I really liked them. I liked those scary movies. But those were almost like the only ones I wanted to screw with, that and Psycho 3. And of course the occasional Chucky flick. But something about watching Scream, I think, actually helped me to sort of blossom into a bigger, more serious horror fan. Something about that I think can't be taken away from that film. And I know that's kind of weird to say that a film about, you could say, the original toxic fandom sort of helped spawn, I think, a pretty healthy fandom. Is that ironic? Maybe. And then, of course, the sequels too. Are not. Well, we'll have another Scream discussion. I was thinking about going through and sort of doing quick reviews on them, but I don't know. We'll probably do that one at a later date, probably as we get closer to Scream 7. But definitely want to do a few of those Scream inspired shows because that's just a film series that we all really enjoy, most of us anyway. I know there are quite a few detractors out there, people who aren't too big on it. Yeah. And let's see. Talking about Scream 7, though. Now, as we all know, there has been some, we'll just call it turbulence. There's been some turbulence on the road to Scream 7. I had pretty much given up hope on seeing this film come to fruition in any way, shape, or form, and I was ready to just let it go, sail off into the winds, become one with the universe, and never see it. Until they announced that not only was Nev Campbell coming back, but the news that Kevin Williamson is taking the director's chair. That got me sold. I could not have been more excited, honestly, about that. I thought that was something about it feels right, and I feel like this is where they should sort of end the series right now. I just have this be the swan song, have the guy who really created it, just have him be the one to help guide it to its sunset. Scream 7 at this point, as far as other characters go, I don't know, man. It's because at this point, I don't think that we're going to see Sam and Tara. It just doesn't seem like it's going to happen. I don't think there's any bit of remedying the behind the scenes situation there as far as their involvement goes for Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega. I don't know how the core four would really work as not four. And I don't know, there's something about that in Scream 6 too that kind of rubbed me wrong. As much as I love the guy, our dude should not have survived. Our dude should not have survived. Chad. I almost forgot his name. I'm like, what the fuck is this guy's name? He's an alpha Chad, literally named Chad. Let's see. Bring Randy's sister back. Possibly as Ghostface. You know, if they do intend on making Scream 7 the last one, I feel like they should. I don't know. You got to have one that has real oomph to it as far as who the Ghostface is. And I don't know, with Randy's sister, with her, I don't know, man, because I could see her maybe being a Ghostface, but I don't know. We got to have some pretty decent people, I feel, in Sydney's life, and I don't know. It all really would boil down to execution too. I mean, you could have that whole she's very bitter about the fact that her brother bit the dust from Ghostface Killer, and it almost put her kids at risk. So I could see that working for that reason. And I know I think it was on the Scream fandom, the Scream wiki page or whatever. I think on there there was like some comment thread on there that was people talking about making Hank, Billy's dad, the killer at some point down the road. And you know, I think Hank is best left alone. Like, I sort of entertained the idea for a little while, like, hey, that could be interesting, but again, you don't want to really overdo it with too many people being completely crazy there. And I don't know, I feel like having Hank as sort of a victim in his own right is probably just the best place to leave him as a character. And I think they already off screen, I think it was just a deleted scene in Scream 4. They mentioned that Neil Prescott died. I don't know. I feel like if you wanted anybody personally, like super personally connected to Sydney that we have met already, if you want any of them to be the killer, I think Neil would be the one. It would be like the reason why I think Neil would be an interesting killer if they could retcon his sort of off-screen death in Scream 4, which again I think was left to a deleted scene if I remember correctly. Bring him back, have him be the killer, and it'll really take things full circle when it goes to sort of the whole speculation there where they were all talking about, oh yeah, Neil Prescott's the prime suspect. I don't think anybody would expect it, because they'd be like, oh, Sydney's dad is back. He looks so old and sweet and innocent. Have him be the killer, maybe? I don't know. Just shitballing ideas right now is actually making me realize how much thought goes into the plots of the Scream films. But you know what? Real quick, to go back to the allure of Scream. go back to the appeal of Scream. One thing I really like about those films is the freaking mystery angle. Every one of the entries has that mystery effect to it where, they're all the whodunits. And I feel like every film that's come out recently, it's probably been like this since the third film. Maybe as far back as the first film when you look at, oh, this Dewey guy, he might be the killer. The constant speculation that one of our main characters might become the killer, there's something about that I don't know, because on one hand it would be interesting to see one of them turn heel and be the killer at some point, or to have been secretly involved with it all. But it's again one of those things about tarnishing the legacy of a certain character. Is it a good idea? Is it a bad idea? I don't know. To retroactively go back and sort of change something like that it's always a real sketchy situation. But I remember watching that first film though and thinking that it probably was definitely going to be Dewey. I thought Sydney's dad. Like, I had a feeling it wasn't him right away. I thought Billy, and as soon as he got arrested, no. But seriously though, the mystery, that's the point I'm trying to get at here, is the mystery angle of the Scream films is one thing that definitely is always going to bring me back into it. And what I thought would have been cool, and at the beginning of Scream 6, spoiler for a movie that's been out for about a year now, in the cold open, we get the unmasking of a Ghostface killer. Not the long haul Ghostface, but that idea. How cool would it be to have that sort of thing happen where you have a Ghostface killer that we know is the killer, but there's the dramatic irony where the characters don't know. Like, just seeing that as sort of the first 15 minutes or less of Scream 6, I thought, you know what? That would be a hell of a way to go forward with one of these films. I could definitely get on board with that. It would be I don't know, just one of those things that would be so damn interesting. And I think that's what they were going to originally do with Scream 5, if I remember correctly. They were going to bring Jill back, but Sydney wouldn't have remembered that Jill was the one to attack her at the end there. I don't know, just something about that I think is so damn interesting. We got someone else in here now. We got Jen from the block. I can't hum the song, but definitely dig the name there. Jen from the block likes 1, 3, 2, 4. Curious, have you seen 5 and 6 yet, or are you just kind of not a fan of those enough to really consider ranking them? But that's interesting, because I think Zodiac had Scream 3 pretty high too. Let's go back up here and double check on that. Yeah, you guys both have that at a pretty high level there. Both have. That's interesting there. And Scream 3 is an interesting one. And we'll look at that when we get to the ranking here. It was, I think, 2 weeks ago, I did a video on a few hot takes, like unpopular opinions, whatever. And one of my things that I was bringing up was Roman Bridger is my favorite of the Ghostface killers. When you look at the fact that he acted solo and all that stuff, he's sort of the one who set all the wheels of the 2 previous films in motion, and of course the third film itself. Just something about that I thought was pretty damn cool. And as I get older, it just becomes all the more impressive. Because it's like, you look at teamwork makes the dream work in the rest of the films. But I don't know, there's certain flaws to his character like just as a character, where he's not as strong as the other ones. But yeah, no, dude, Roman Overtime is definitely climbing high. Like as a Ghostface killer, oh, he's the fucking man. As a character, he's got his ups and downs. Uh, Stu, Mickey. I even like Charlie. That's definitely a freaking sort of controversial opinion, I guess, because a lot of people just hated Charlie, who was very clearly Charlie was very clearly a killer in Scream 4. I don't think you needed to sit through that movie to know that he was involved with that in some way, shape, or form. Uh, I feel like Mickey, too, is another one that was pretty obvious from the get go. And, I wish Scream 2 had not been ruined by the advent of the internet at that time, with the leaking of the scripts and whatnot. I don't know. I'm pretty happy, though, with the version of Scream 2 that we do have and that does exist. But let's real quick, since I got you guys talking about the rankings down there a little bit, we're going to do that here. I'm going to go through kind of quick, rank it, give a quick reason. We're going to rank this franchise real fast and sort of continue on a little bit. At number 6, and you know what, real quick, before we even get into the numbers game here, I will say that I do like every single one of these films. I really like to absolutely love the films in the series. But we're going to start here at number 6. And number 6 is one that, again, has been getting that reevaluation. That is going to be Scream 3. I'm coming around to it. There was a period there where I thought this was probably the most god-awful thing that Wes Craven had ever involved himself with. I found out that that was actually 15 years earlier with The Hills Have Eyes Part 2. Let's never have to talk about that again. But Scream 3 is just, it's a silly, fun time. And I think the common consensus that everyone says when it comes to this film, especially for those who also rank it at the bottom of the barrel, we all say the same thing. When Scream 3 is the least favorable film in your franchise, you're going pretty fucking good. Like, if this is as bad as it gets, it only gets better. It gets way better. But Scream 3 is a lot of fun. The voice changer thing, that's something a lot of people shit on. It's pretty cool. It's far-fetched, it's silly, but it's a pretty cool little thing to have in there. The performances are a lot of fun. To sort of really see them stepping high gear with the whole meta nature too was something that was pretty damn impressive. I'm not impressive, I guess amusing more so. I mean, they really just went freaking full pedal to the metal with the meta. Pedal to the meta? Yeah, that's the way we do it. But yeah, Scream 3, number 6. Still pretty damn solid, though. Number 5 is going to be Scream 4. I noticed that quite a few people have this one at the bottom. This one was like the first one that I was actually actively waiting for. This one I thought was pretty impressive when it came out, when I did get around to seeing it. Again, I saw in the comments there, I think it was Jen was saying that. Let's see, pull it up here so that, yeah. And 4 was good. Didn't see Jill as the killer at first. That absolutely caught me off guard too. And there's times where I go back and watch it, and every time I revisit these, I try to erase what I know. That's not very easy to do. But every time I watch it, I try and sort of put that fresh state of mind back on when I watch Scream 4 and sort of try to not see Jill as being Ghostface. Like, maybe she is a victim in all this, but no, she's not. And I think she played it off pretty well, unless it was lazy writing, but I think that it just shows the sociopathy of her character. this one I thought was a lot of fun too, because it came out again when a lot of films were being remade, and it sort of played on that pretty heavily. And I thought that was a pretty cool thing, because I was one of those people in the crowd of like, don't fuck with the original. Although the thing about remakes now, as I get older, I'm starting to realize, you know what? If it gives awareness to the original film, not bad. Remake, not bad. And that's sort of the thing going on with Scream 4 here. Like, it definitely, like the original film, and fuck, even 2 and 3, it sort of points younger viewers who are just getting into horror, because I feel Scream is a great starter horror series. Like, it's definitely a great way to start. It definitely points you in the right direction for more classic horror films. And at the end, when Kirby's on the phone, like, name the film that, and she's just naming all these different ones off. It's like, hey, that's where you need to slow it down, put on the subtitles, take some notes, put those fuckers in your watch list. Some really good flicks there, remakes and the originals. But yeah, no, something about Scream 4 though. We've all talked about the way the film is colored. The coloration is way off in that film, just too bright. Gives it sort of a weird TV feel almost. But it's the one that's really just kind of there. I mean, there are times too. Like, if you'd asked me yesterday, this probably could have been number 6. But there's things in this one I feel that it does a little bit better than 4. Wow, excuse me, better than 3. I mean, first of all, going back to the basics. Hey, I realized what this fucker is. It's Halloween 4 all over again. Going back to the basics. It plays it safe. I love how Roman tells Sydney how he was pulling the strings on Billy all along. Yeah. Yeah, 100% there, man. But yeah, something though about Scream 4 is just, I don't know, it came at the right time for me as somebody who was really starting to take horror more seriously. Like, I was at this point, you know, teenager, I'm really trying to get into that point of where I want to make my own horror film, and actually doing that now, finally. But Scream 4 was the one that really sort of kickstarted. It took my fandom to a point where it's like, I don't want to just be a fan of this genre. I want to be a creative player here. Because this was like the first one where I was really able to sort of soak in the storytelling aspects of it. And I don't know, I feel like, again, that's something that all these Scream films do. They help you to sort of look at horror a different way. I don't know, something about it. Kirby Meeker. Yes, back to the basics. Halloween 4, back to basics. Yeah, you know, that, honestly, I don't know, it was weird. Kirby was a character I didn't know how to really handle at first, because she seemed a little sketchy, especially there near the end. But, you know, upon rewatch, like, I found myself loving her more and more every time that I would rewatch it. It was like, she was just kind of okay. She was just kind of there. But yeah, no, Kirby. Yeah. Yes. Oh, anyway. Coming in at number 4, we're going to take a look at Scream 6. Now, previously I did have this one a little bit higher, but I don't know, this one, it's the newest one, so something about it being the newest one sort of helped it go up higher, like, immediately. Call it the recency bias there. The change of setting was nice. I think that this is one series that's able to change the setting drastically, and it doesn't feel ridiculous. Like, if you were to do something like that with Friday the 13th, you know, like, I don't know, if you were to send Jason to New York, that would just be silly. It couldn't happen. It couldn't happen. I mean, I want to see Scream in space. I mean, you can never do that with Friday the 13th. But, but no, so this one I thought was pretty cool. gave us, I think, the type of Ghostface we've been asking for, and honestly, Scream 4 did too, with this more brutal Ghostface. Like, we get that in this one. Like, this is a Ghostface that feels angrier than it has ever been. Just the entity of the character. The mask, the robe, it doesn't matter who's behind it. They all seem to have the same level of sort of aggression in each film from one to the next. And in this one, I don't know if it was just because I don't know if it was just because he has like the rough masks, you know, the just kind of going back through the years using the different masks from previous films. Uh, I don't know. There's things about it that was cool. I definitely like the bodega scene. Like that was just seeing the still images of that, like Ghostface with the shotgun. I'm thinking, oh, this is not gonna be the killer. This is gonna be somebody else using that as sort of a like it's a misdirection type of thing. You know, it's like they always say on Halloween, that's the best day to commit a crime. I'm not saying this. This is just something I've heard before. But because everybody's dressed up, that'd be the time to do some stupid shit. I'm not condoning that, but you know, that's just one of those things that we ought to be mindful of out there. And I thought that's what that was essentially. uh, Got to be honest, I like the trailer for 6 better than the actual film. You know, I still haven't seen the trailer for that. Like, I tend to try to avoid trailers, and it's just because a lot of times they overdo it. I'll have to check the trailer out, though, just to see if I share the sentiment there. The New York City setting was off slash cheap. Yeah, it honestly with this one it didn't feel too cheap. Like you can tell that they kind of had to pull the Jason Takes Manhattan card a little bit, where it's like, well, fuck, we can't really afford to do all this New Yorky stuff. Uh, it was it was interesting. Like I like some of the things about it, uh, but I felt that they did it in a way that was practical enough, where it's like, yeah, Tara's going to college at Blackmore University. Okay, sure. And I don't know. It's one where looking at the struggle between the two sisters is one of the things that really gets me into this one. Just something about that. It's to see sort of how the trauma affects the characters and how they explore that is always something that I think is really cool. That's something that this whole franchise does too with all the various lead characters that we get. Uh, yeah, the opening. I would like some more of that Scream 6 opening. Again, using that sort of we, the audience, know who the killer is throughout. Like, if that guy had been our killer for the whole film, that could have led to some pretty intense encounters. But yeah, that opening was a lot of fun. It was it's one I kind of crack jokes at sometimes when I watch it by myself now, but you know, I still fucking enjoy it. I definitely was I'd say the one of the better openings they've had all around. You know, you could do a lot with the Scream and ranking stuff from here. Getting those October ideas again. The Billy scenes were the highlight for me. You know, the thing about Scream 5 and 6 lately with sort of the ghostly presence of Billy, that's like the weird double-sided sword where it's like there's things about it that are pretty damn cool. It shows sort of this internal struggle for Sam, but it's almost putting Scream into a category that it's not been in before. But I personally don't have a problem with that, but I could see because I've heard some people saying that they're not really too big on that. Like they think it's a little bit silly, and I could see the silliness of it. It was pretty jarring in the 5th film watching that the first time, but I don't know. I don't hate it. I think it's pretty interesting, but I don't know. I feel like it should have just been left in Scream 5 and not really carried on into 6, but then you would have had the I probably would have been complaining if they didn't bring it into 6 now that I think about it. Because, damned if we do, damned if we don't. That's just the way the cookie crumbles. The fight scene at the theater with the sisters and family was off. Felt like Sydney would have gave a better fight performance. Yeah, I don't know. Because I did enjoy that. It did feel a little rushed. Like that's like the main complaint I have there is the whole climax just felt like it was all right, here we are, now let's get it done. Like it just felt a little too rushed for me. I liked it. If they could have drawn it out a little bit more, I think it probably could have been a little more satisfying. That honestly is my main gripe of the film, is sort of the way it ends. I did like the idea of more than two killers, spoilers, but that was I think the reveals were pretty cool. One was super obvious, the other two not so much. But upon rewatch, the one of the other two super obvious. But I thought it was a pretty cool ending. If they hadn't rushed it, though, it could have been so much better. But the whole thing about the museum sort of aspect of the theater, like it gave me Scooby Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed vibes. Like it just had that whole idea of the Coolsville Smithsonian or whatever. It's like, okay, it's a little far fetched, but you know what? For a franchise this long in the tooth that's still putting out pretty consistently good films, I'll suspend my disbelief for it. It was a cool idea. And when you're seeking that nostalgia high, that's the great way to get it right there. It's like, hey, we're just going to throw you out into the Easter egg hunt here. Have fun. That's really what that whole set piece was for me, really. But yeah, if they hadn't rushed the climax, this one could have definitely been higher. If they would have had the balls to have ended Gale, also could have put this one a little bit higher. I mean, I like Gale as much as the next one, but Gale is a character that I don't feel is as important as Sydney, but she is an important character. And I did sort of do a little video about that a while back. I think it was sometime last year. It might have been in September. I'll try and link that to this at some point. But it would be Why Gale Matters, I think is the name of the video. But if they had killed Gale, that also, I think, could have made this one go up a little bit higher. It's not that I hate Gale. It's just, I feel that she has been needing to go for a while now. What they did with Dewey in Scream 5, like, shit like that is what I look for when you get this long into a franchise. Give us some stakes that count. Don't bring in these new characters that, oh, our protagonists like them. Kill them. No. Kill the characters that matter. And give it some fucking meaning. I'm almost sounding like the characters in this film when I say shit like that. Would have def went above 5. Yeah. Yeah. She was so close to. She got lucky. Gale got lucky in this one. I agree to the part, Gale. I agree to the Gale part. I thought they should have kept it. Yeah, I mean, honestly, it doesn't hurt that it wouldn't hurt having both of them die. Like I thought, like before we got 5, I was thinking it would have been interesting if the cold open had been both of them dying, because typically the cold open is 2 characters getting it. If it had been both of them at the start of Scream 5, that I think would have been sort of that tipping point to bring Sydney back home. But I don't know. I feel like the way they did it in 5 was almost better, honestly, than doing it that way. But yeah, that raises a good question. If not in the first scene, should they even bring her back? Like, if they're not going to bother to kill off Gale, should they even bother bringing her back? I feel it's time. It is high time for Gail to go. Uh, I love her. She served her purpose. Her purpose was at its highest in the first and second film. But it's time, Gail. It's time, Michael. But anyway, going on to the next film here, we're going to talk about Scream 5. Uh, I don't want to call it like by the year because, you know, that absolute, that requel shit. It's frustrating. It's frustrating to have to refer to a film by the year that it came out. But yeah, Scream 5 from 2022. That's right. This one was a good film. Again, the bar for this one for me was set pretty high, like just in terms of expectations. It's like, okay, you guys have had 11 years. Yes, we lost Wes Craven, but Kevin Williamson seems to be okay with this one. The original trio seems to be okay with this one. If they all like it enough for it to happen, this film better be pretty damn good. And honestly, it didn't disappoint for me. There were things about it that I thought were a little silly, but it's really just some of the characters in it. There was a couple weird little inconsistencies, like Judy Hicks and her son. Like, something about that just didn't seem to feel like it fit sort of neatly enough into the timeline with Scream 4. But the killer is on this poster. Oh, yeah. Yep. I like that little thing they did too, where they just had every actor involved just posing with the mask at one point. And yeah, they're not wrong there. It doesn't help that both of them are on the same side. Could have made it a little more interesting, but you know, I'm not going to complain too hard on that one. Let's see. Absolutely not. I don't need to see her do the same thing for 3 movies in a row. Yeah, no kidding. It's like, I don't know. Again, I love Gail, but not enough to see her constantly dodging it when she ultimately has outserved her original purpose. That's nothing against Courtney Cox, but your character's pretty much had her time. But yeah, Scream from 2022. This one was pretty solid, I think. Return to form. Definitely showed that there is still fuel in the tank. And, you know, it showed that a good Scream film could still be made. I thought that the return to the Mocker House was a pretty cool move. Again, it's definitely nostalgia baiting you just a little bit. But I don't really see a problem there. It's like maybe using the nostalgia baiting is sort of a sort of way to distract us from the flaws that could exist within the film. But this one, I thought, for what it was, again, being that deep into the franchise's run, you can't really complain too much. I mean, you got to look at it on the greater scale of comparing it to other part fives. This is a pretty damn solid part 5 in comparison to a lot of other ones. And it just was a movie that had heart and it had fucking balls. And when you combine those two things, I think you have a film that really stands up strong. 5 was cool for new Scream fans. Yeah, I'd say really for the newer fans, like who weren't into it yet, it's definitely another great starter. And I guess not putting the number on it definitely helps it in that regard. It's like do this and then go straight to Scream 6, and then they realize, oh, there's more films I got to catch up on. Cool. But yeah, I did like the way they did Dewey in this one. Of course, ending Dewey was something that hurt quite a bit to see because, I mean, we all loved that goofy bastard. But to see him get it, It definitely raised the stakes in the film. But Scream 5, you're a pretty solid entry. Now here we are though to the top two. If we deduce the numbers here real quick, we'll just kind of go through. We had Scream 3 at number 6, Scream 4 at number 5, Scream 6 at number 4, Scream 6 at number 4, and Scream 5 at 3. That leaves us with the two originals. And this is another one where I tend to go back and forth on them. But today caught me on a pretty good, super vanilla opinion day. Scream 2 at number 2. This one, I think, definitely sort of cracks the... it definitely plays heavy with the joke that it sets out to make about, oh, sequels suck, they're inferior films. There's times where I actually prefer Scream 2 to the original film, but trying to think about the two films sort of side by side, didn't really have time to watch them in preparation for this video, but I have been watching most of them. Like, I have watched most of them already in the course of this year already, so a good amount of them are still pretty damn fresh in the mind. Scream 2, though, again, at times, I prefer this to the first film. Again, the college setting I thought was pretty damn solid. You can sucker me in with that right away. There's quite a few films that, if they have that college setting, that's almost enough for me to check out. Like The Dorm That Dripped Blood. Of course, that gets a shout out here. Just something about that setting is something that's really terrifying because, you know, you're supposed to feel safe there. I guess that's probably not the best way to approach that talking point, but, you know, you are supposed to feel safe. The sort of on school grounds, on a schooling sort of premises. And Scream 2 shows that, yeah, no, you could not. Especially at the time that it came out. And, you know, that was before a particular event that really shut up. You know, anyway, Scream 2, it's just a lot of fun. It doesn't feel like it's really repeating itself. Like, it feels like, yeah, there are a couple beats that are sort of seen from the previous film, but it does its own thing at the same time. And it does something too. It sort of shows the maturing process of Sidney as a character. We sort of see that with even Dewey. Like, he does seem a little less boyish here. He's still a goofy little bastard. But you definitely get the maturation sort of thing going on. And you get that as the films go, too. Like, in the first 5 films, like, you really see that with Sidney, just the whole maturing process. And we cannot forget that guy. We cannot forget Cotton fucking Weary. Oh, Cotton Weary. Love that guy. Scream 2 grew on me. I thought it was too slow, but I like the college scene. Mickey, Randy. Yeah. Yeah. Cotton. 100% Cotton. Yeah, the film class scene, that one's a lot of fun. Again, just the whole setting. The only thing I really don't like, and it's not that I even don't like it, it just feels out of place, and it's like, why are you in here? It's the whole cafeteria scene, but it's brilliant when you think about sort of there's something brilliant about it, and I don't know quite how to put it into words. I feel like I would have to do a pre-recorded Scream 2 review for that. But there is something brilliant about it when you look at sort of how if you look at how Mickey up to that point has sort of been trying to play with Sidney's sort of trust in Derek, and
just the way that scene ultimately plays out, where it's like, would a killer draw that kind of attention to themselves? Probably not. And I don't know. Again, this one I haven't watched as recently as some of the others, but there is something brilliant about that scene, even though it's probably my least favorite in the film. One scene I do like, though, absolutely adore, is where she's doing her play. I forget what Greek tragedy it was, but that whole scene where you've got all the robed freaking masks going on, and that they're all these Greek stage play masks or whatever. You got them running around, and Sydney sees the ghost face with that brown robe. That scene was just absolutely amazing. Uh, Lack of trust in Derek. Yes. Did I say that wrong? There's a good chance I might have. A lot of times I don't think before I speak when I do these lives. But yeah, no, oh, yeah, seriously though, like seriously, Sydney, what are the chances that two boyfriends in a row are both going to be freaking cuckoo bird knuckleheads? Not very high. Derek, sorry that you were left to be nothing more than a statistic, my friend. Uh, but yeah, that ultimately gives, though, the number one spot to the original film, Scream from 96. From 1996, Scream. What to say about that film that hasn't been said? It changed sort of the perception of slashers. I don't know if it did that for everybody at the time, but I think because it was sort of a dying out subgenre, like you look at the films that were coming out, they were waning in quality in terms of slashers. Horror was still doing pretty okay, but slashers, they were on their way out. This little bastard, this little bastard comes along and changes that, changes it real good. Uh, yeah. Again, what to say about it that's not been said? It's just one of the greats, one of the all-time greats, without a doubt. Uh, Whether you love it or hate it, you can't deny the impact that this has had on horror fans. Again, at the start of the video, I was talking about how this film and the series as a whole sort of helped to develop me into a more serious horror fan, because not only is it sort of playing with sort of the tropes and having seen it at such a young age, I didn't catch the joke. Like, I wasn't in on the joke. I was just like, this is a super serious horror film. And it helps me to still see them as such. Even though I know that, yeah, they're poking fun at this shit. Just a little bit. Uh, I don't know. I think it helps people get introduced to horror, and it's definitely the movie I think that can help you determine if you're going to be a casual horror fan or a horror hound. I feel Scream is definitely the franchise to sort of it separates the from the chaff, or however that saying goes. But yeah, classic opening scene, 100%. That was definitely the first time. I can't remember if I saw this or a Nightmare on Elm Street first. I might have saw Nightmare on Elm Street first, but both of them definitely gave me trust issues with Mr. Wes Craven. uh, and I mean that in the nicest way possible. But yeah, no, when Wes Craven puts a movie out, when he did put, let me think of the right way to say that. Every time I watch a Wes Craven film for the first time, I find myself not trusting him so much, because it's like, what are you going to do, Wes? Are you going to take this character that I'm kind of liking, that I think we're going to follow, and you're going to change course on us? You're going to do that again, aren't you? And between this and Nightmare, that man definitely did the Janet Leigh bait and switch pretty damn well. The video store scene with Randy, Billy, and Stu, another scene that always stands out. Absolutely. And of course, that third act, again, I already beat to death the whole cut of Halloween that they're watching. But that ending, like, because at this point you're almost 1,000% sure that Billy is not the killer. Because it's like, oh, one, he was arrested. Now, oh shit, now he's dead. He's not the killer. But then he fucking is. But then he is. But wait, there's more. Stu's in on it. If I could go back, if I could erase my memory just of having seen Scream, I would go back and watch this with a fresh set of eyes, like a completely fresh mind. I would definitely like to sit with somebody having them watch this for the first time just to see sort of that reaction. Because the way this film ends, it's just something else, man. It definitely oh, it was great. It's a Scream, baby. Surprise, Sydney. Yeah, dude. That like that moment, even as a little kid, I was like, oh, oh. Like I didn't realize that you would call that a sort of a twist there, but it was definitely my first experience in understanding fucking with the audience's expectations. This film really was the first time that I understood that, even at a young age. But yeah, this film, I can't think of anything new to say about it. Maybe if I do a review for these films later, I can sort of sit down and sort of think about it in a way that's sort of quick, concrete, to the point, but also very high up on my armchair, you know, a pretentious way that I like to talk about films when I pre-record my content there. But yeah, no, these films are all pretty freaking great. What should they do after, though? After they're done with the seventh film? What should be the future of Scream? Just leave it alone. That's all. After Scream 7, if that is where they decide to end it, leave it alone. It's one series that does not need to be rebooted with a brand new continuity. The remake treatment works for some, others not so much. And while you could argue that, yeah, a remake for Scream would be pretty damn solid, I don't know. I feel like this is like one of the few that should just be left alone. It's got its perfect little legacy there. It sort of came in at, I don't know, for its importance alone, almost. I'm not saying a remake would tarnish it, but it would just be the most unnecessary thing because you're essentially making a Scream 8. Stab. Why don't you just call it Stab 8? You know, fucking, it'd be one of those situations. Now, that's not to say for people to do fan films. Now, those, I feel if there is a series that is probably the best one to sort of do your own fan films with, like if you're going to go out, get a couple other actors together or whatever, assemble a crew and make a fan film, this is the series to do it with. And we've seen some good Halloween and Friday the 13th fan films. And there's already plenty of Scream fan films out there. But if you were insisting to make more of these, just call it a fan film. Because after this series hits its crescendo and the curtain drops, that there's no need to really continue the property in any serious way. Just let it rest. That's all I have to say on that. Like after it's done, don't go forward with anymore. Don't remake it. Don't try and do a requel some 30 years from now, 15, 20 years from now even. Yeah, shit. I guess that would be about 15 years away if they wanted to follow the Halloween legacy there. Don't do that. We don't need a legitimate requel where, we're getting a sequel to Scream in 2036, 2046. We don't need that shit. Just It's just something that would be absolutely unproductive. Uh, I don't know. I just a little passionate about this series. Maybe I like it more than I thought I did. But we're about to end it off here, guys. I think that talking about the end of the franchise is sort of a good ending point. You guys who are watching this and don't know already, there is another project in the works right now, working on a couple films of my own. Working on a short film at the moment called Dog Screams. Got the teaser for that to play for you guys. There's a playlist on the channel pertaining to all things Dog Screams. Check this out. All right. So yeah, that is the short film that is going to be coming out. That is actually not the updated teaser trailer for that. But very same concept. A couple little changes I made to that. But that film is going to be coming out a little bit later this year. It is currently in production. The shooting is going on, and it's something that I'm really looking forward to bringing to you guys. But it's not going to be the only one. There's going to be much more of that to come. Anyway, speaking of dog screams and all things dog related, my buddy Chop Top has a word for you guys.
Dog will hunt! Get that bitch, Leatherface! Get that bitch! Dog will hunt!
And I just want to thank Jen from the block and Zodiac. You guys were great, definitely helping to keep this show going. I don't know if I would have stayed on for this long if it hadn't been for you guys' involvement out there. Anybody watching this on the playback, thank you for checking us out. Everyone who did not comment or couldn't comment, I want to thank you guys for tuning in also. This was a fun talk. Definitely want to do some more Scream-related stuff just because it's one of those series that's it's up there with its importance to horror, and it's definitely a difference maker. Anyway, thank you guys once again. Play with those icons down there. Definitely helps out. Check out and support Dog Screams coming at you later this year. You guys have a good night. Be safe. Happy Sunday. Carpenter be with you.